Alright, so I have a lot of topics that I would like to cover today. For starters, how many people BLM has killed and ruined the lives of, and how they're turned Antifa and been hijacked and aren't the original cause they once were. How the left is actually covered for Joe Biden by apparently giving him a list of reporters he's supposed to call on and not answering any of the other ones because, as we know, any serious question, Biden would instantly crumble. How BLM activists have actually armed up and shot multiple kids and teenagers. How a black militia apparently rose up and just started demanding money from white people. All of them were armed. And how CNN hasn't covered any of this because they're fake news. As we know, CNN only covers stuff that can make them biased and suit their political agenda because they, as we all know, CNN isn't actually journalists. They're just more fake politics, if you will, because they only cover one side of the story. They don't get all of it, and they have a habit of twisting things to fit them in their favor. Like how, for example, the couple that we saw who defended their house were fully in the right of their law since a bunch of angry protesters who just burned a 7-Eleven came in, broke down their gate illegally, and went into private property illegally. They stood on their porch with guns because, to defend themselves with their Second Amendment right, and told their protesters to back off, who apparently threatened them before they had to go get the guns, and they wanted to kill their dog, kill them, burn down their house because they were white. So yeah, they had the full right to defend themselves. Yet CNN twisted it into saying, oh, you're resistance to the BLM movement. If using your Second Amendment right is resistance to the BLM movement, then I guess I'm pro-resistance to the BLM movement then, because every human has the basic right of self-defense, and every human deserves the best way of self-defense to defend them, their homeland, their family, and all their property, and that right now is a gun. So that is obviously going to be the main way that you're going to see people having to defend themselves. So, first story being, I guess, we've seen multiple kids and teenagers die, along with tons of adults, like 200, 300 people have died now to BLM and Antifa, is it? And shootings. Actually, I think we're nearing 400 people dead now, but we have seen tons of deaths by BLM, and as usual, black on black crime kills more blacks every single year over anything else, including this year. Even though BLM is out and all that, blacks are still killing more blacks than anybody else in the world right now. So I thought that was funny, and how Chaz had a 100% black mortality rate. But we've seen tons of kids die to BLM activists and shooters now. We've seen a couple teenagers, probably like 7 teenage kids, middle schoolers, high schoolers. We've seen like 5 kids who are around the toddler preschool age, maybe first, second grade, 8-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds. We've seen tons of young children die to BLM and Antifa, activists shooting them and killing them. We've seen how BLM has failed and how Chaz had the most brutal police force of all time. And that's saying something because we still have China existing right now. But, Joe Biden, as we actually found out, has a little list that they give him of reporters that he's supposed to call on, and he has answers for other questions. So now we know, as we suspected, Joe Biden doesn't get asked any actual hard questions. He gets asked questions that they prep him for, easy questions that they already tell him the answer to, which is funny because as we see throughout all his interviews, he still messes them up despite having the answer written on paper in front of him and rehearsing the question multiple times, as we now know. Because of course, they can't have Biden actually doing anything because they know as soon as he does anything, he will instantly crumble because Joe Biden literally can't do anything. I don't know why the Democrats ended up choosing him. Even though Bernie Sanders and his ideas have never worked anywhere in the history of mankind ever, he at least still proposed stuff. Joe Biden just, wrongly hates guns and yells at people who disagree with them and cusses out his fans. So I thought that was very lovely to see of, old Joe there. The memes have been absolutely spot on, by the way, of all of his dumb quotes. Absolutely beautiful to see that. Now, as I mentioned before, there was a black militia, so a bunch of black people basically armed themselves, walked down the street, and basically robbed people. Actually, no, not basically. They did rob white people and made them give them money for their penance, which I know without a doubt none of these black people have ever met any of these white people or any of anyone else of color, because they didn't only get white people. You know, they got Asians, they got some Mexicans in there. You know, so they were only robbing white people. It was just a mass robbery. And as I said before, you know, we're not gonna see CNN cover this. You know, they hate when white people defend themselves and stuff like that, but they do not want to cover when black people do anything bad, because it goes against their, you know, totally fake narrative. They just can't be having that and all that. You know, they can't be proved wrong. We saw some idiot protesters get hit by a car. One of them actually died. I mean, that's what you get for protesting on the freeway, blocking the freeway with your cars, and wearing all black at night. So the car swerved around the corner, right? And he sees the two cars that they slashed the tires out of, and he obviously doesn't want to hit the cars, so he swerves around the car. And as soon as he does that, he realizes there's a group of people in there. You know, he sees them last second because they're all wearing all black. So he tries to swerve the other way, and when he swerves the other way, he ends up hitting two protesters. And he waits there. It wasn't a hit and run, you know. He tried to wait because he realized, you know, what just happened. A bunch of idiots were there, and they just got ran over by him, and he's not going to run away. So, you know, he's waiting for the police. The police are coming. And then the rioters or protesters, whatever you want to call them at this point, go up and try beating in his car and breaking his windows and slashing out his tires. So he just drives up the road more and then waits for the police there, and they arrested him. Now, at first, you'll see, you know, BLM and Fox, you know, everyone saying, oh, it was a right-wing, white supremacist attack, and it was fueled by racism and all that. But as it was quickly found out, the perpetrator was black, so the story was dropped because, as you know, they can't be having black on black violence or anything actually be shown. Of course, that would be contradicting to their fake narrative. So as soon as that was found out, they instantly dropped the story and moved on. Like, they have a habit of doing that, where when it's black on black violence or anything else, you know, it's bad. But when white person hits black person, or police do their job and arrest a black person, it's suddenly very, very, very bad. Because, I don't know, they think you get immunity from the law based on the color of your skin, which, in my opinion, if anyone breaks the law, you know, and that's how it is. If anyone breaks the law, it doesn't matter the color of your skin, you're going to be punished. And if you do something stupid, you're going to die. So don't be stupid. CNN, well, Corey, I've already said this, but we know CNN isn't going to cover any of this. They're not going to cover the kids that died. They're not going to say the names of the almost 500 now, probably around people who died due to BLM and Antifa. They're not going to mention the shootings. They're not going to mention the shooters. They're not going to mention this black militia group who robbed a bunch of people down the streets, all armed with ARs and stuff like that. They're not going to mention any of that because it doesn't fit their fake narrative, because they're not actually true journalists. They're just political biased reporters. You know, Chris Cuomo is probably going to twist this somehow. I mean, he always finds a way. He literally twisted two people defending their home into something bad, so I'm sure he'll find a way to twist a bunch of black people robbing people into being good, you know, because that's just what they have a habit of doing, apparently. So another thing, I guess, is Trump finally told people who were breaking statues that they will be punished, which, I mean, I'm laughing because it took the president actually telling them to enforce the law for them to enforce the law, because actually they're still not even fully enforcing the law. People are still getting away with it. Now, people say you should tear down, you know, like, the Confederate statues because it's racism. Not all of them were racist. That's one. Two, they literally tore down George Washington, the man who said all men are created equal. And, you know, they tore down tons of people, famous historical people who, yeah, they had slaves. But guess what? A lot of these historical people specifically bought slaves to make them free. They bought the slaves so that way when they would work for him, they would actually get what they worked for. They would be the ones getting the profit. So, like, they just don't know their plain and simple history, you know. They tried to tear down the statue of Andrew Jackson, but thankfully the police stopped these idiots. As we now know, it's just a bunch of soy boys and pathetic white people who can't do anything with their lives, so as soon as the police intervene, they usually quit pretty quickly, and then they go on Twitter and cry about police brutality when it's the police doing their job. You want to see, like, police brutality? Say free Hong Kong in Hong Kong and watch how much you get beat with batons. Just watch. Simply just watch. It's actually sad how they equate police doing their job here as, you know, brutal, versus when you have places like China, which just have off the roots, like, just top police brutality. Just absolutely blown out of the water. And we've seen this many times, you know, when black people actually disagree with this. They either hate them or they, you know, dish them, they dox them. And you will continue to see more of that throughout as time passes, because, well, that's just the world we live in. And people are going to continue to not defy BLM and They're just going to continue pushing this false narrative that all black people are under attack. When even this year, again, like every other year that has ever passed, more black people are killing black people than any other cause ever. This is TF2 Fan 1 Exact Shots logging off. Peace out.